This episode is brought to you by Dee Accounting.
Okay, so you were saying about the Black churches, and I want to hear what you were going to say about that and sort of start there.
Yeah, so
with your organizing and stuff.
I just started going to church, and just from you and from just a lot of the information that I was receiving from different YouTubers and stuff, I just started getting interested in Black Americans and our experience and what's going on now and how things have changed, and what I can use for basically a guide kind of for how things are supposed to be, or just how we drifted kind of so far away from where we used to be, if we drifted at all. So in my quest for that, the only place out here in Nevada that I really get to be around Black people is at church. And so that interested me, and I feel like that's been kind of my story throughout my life. Is I'm not a super religious person, but church feels like a home, some sort of home to me. So I just started looking into it and researching it and everything. And basically what I found was that the Black church was created or established, built by Black Americans for service, just to have a space of our own, a space for us to gather and worship, pray, praise. It's actually in Arkansas, one of the first churches that was built, just on the door, just had praise house. And I thought that was super dope. I was like, wow. And so now you come into today, and it's just a whole lot of other shit that's going on in the church.
Money grubbing.
Yeah, essentially the same thing that's going on in the world. You see kind of that coming into the church. Greed.
Capitalism.
Yeah, capitalism. And which is essentially greed. And, one of the scriptures that preachers like to preach from, pastors, everybody says, it's you can't serve two masters. And so in that same scripture, it's you have to choose God or money. You can't have both. So, it's just interesting that, that's literally in the book that people teach from, but you're serving money. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You're not really serving God, which is whatever God is to you, it's definitely not money, because that's greed, So it's just serving the people. And when we see all the things that are going on within our communities, poverty, education, I feel that's a point where the church kind of needs to step in.
Yeah, you said you were you feel that was originally sort of what the church was supposed to do,
Exactly.
and now churches don't do that anymore.
Don't do that. I actually looked, because I'm there has to be at least one church out here that offers a weekly food, free food, just a meal, for people to if they need a meal, if they need, not even if you need it, it's just service. There has to be some type of service that the church is offering, a daily meal. The church offers a daily free meal to whoever comes through. You don't have to be homeless. You don't have to be a member of the church. If you need a meal, your family needs a meal, y'all come through and get that, sit down. That's another thing, sit down and talk to each other, have that community, really establish that community. And I feel the church has gotten so far from the community, because it's in this little pocket of it's you have to be a member, you have to have these type of credentials in order to
pay
do
tithes.
whatever, all that foolishness that just really clouds what service is all about. So a daily meal program, daily child care, they have old people, elders in the church that don't work, don't do anything, that would love to be around children,
Old people and kids always get along.
Exactly. So it's just having that, nobody has to get paid, just come and just chill with children. Why? I think that should be something that's done, counseling. There are a lot of, in the church you find that people have different professions that could service the community, and instead they're servicing the state or the country. So it's, I just want to get back to us serving ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you grow up going to church?
Yeah,
and stuff like
I've been in church my whole life.
Okay.
So that's why another reason why I feel like I'm kind of drawn to that cause. Like, it's something that I know, it's something that I'm familiar with. You know, I've been around church people my whole life. My dad's a deacon, my mom is a deaconess, you know, so it's just like, I feel like I'm within my rights, I guess. Not rights, that's not the word I'm looking for. In my lane of comfortability to be able to go to a church and be like, look, I wanna see this happen. You know, this is something that should be happening, not even taking myself out of it. Like, this is something that should be happening. So,
like, implementing programs through the church type thing. Did you, how do I say this? I mean, did you feel like you got to a point, like, as an adult, was there like an epiphany moment or like an aha moment of, because when you're young, because like I also like grew up in the church, like my grandmother is like a minister, and so we used to be in church like every single day of the week and like all day on Sunday, and like we went to like Christian summer camp, like the whole
vacation Bible school.
Yes, like I have spent a substantial amount of time in the Christian church, and my grandmother is still to this day, she's still a minister. Yeah, she lives in Chicago and she works with the UCC, the United Church of Christ there, and she's done she mostly does like youth services, and she's done them like all throughout the Midwest and mostly and so it's sort of like it's different when you're a kid and you're going to church versus like when you become an adult and you sort of become more aware of different types of things, and you become, obviously we're talking about Black churches, and you become aware of like corruption and certain types of things that are going on. Did you have a moment maybe when you became an adult where you like realized that, and where like that was when like you decided that like you were gonna like do your own thing, or like, you know, start working with your own programming, or was it like something gradual? I'm just curious. I'm curious.
Yeah. So I mean, once I got to college, I guess it came to the point where nobody was making me go to church. You know what I'm saying? Like nobody was really like, are you going to go to church today? You know, so I kind of did not. Like, I stopped going to church at that point and kind of just went on my own time. And over time, I recognized, being away from it, I recognized that it was something that when I would go back, I recognized that it was something that kind of fed my soul in a way. Just like I said, being around people, being around Black people, something about that just does something to me, you know? So I recognize that that's something that I needed. And I think that the realization kind of happened gradually. Like, I can't really think of any particular point where I was like, oh, this shit is trash or corruption or anything. But I just,
shit is trash.
At the time, I was just like, you know, I guess it had more to do with my personal spiritual journey, I guess, more than me looking for things wrong in the church. You know, like throughout my journey, I just kind of realized that, you know, there are a lot of things that the church doesn't teach for a certain reason, you know? A lot of things that were established in the church were taught to them by somebody else. And so just discovering, I guess, what it is that I find spiritually aligned with me. Yeah, that's kind of how that happened. But I still recognize that there are a lot of people who don't have the time to really sit and think about those types of things. So it's like, I'm not about to go to the church and be like, change your beliefs. But I can say, like, we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing. Like, this is not like literally the hat says, what would Jesus do? Jesus would not be on this shit, like, for real. So we got to get back right, you know, as a whole.
Yeah. What do you think about people? Because I know a lot of people I kind of feel like, especially like nowadays, there's a lot of like Black people that are like pushing back very hard against the church and like organized religion, and especially like Christianity, and this idea that that's something that was taught to us by slave masters and slave owners, and that the Bible and Christianity and this idea of Jesus, and especially white Jesus and stuff, was like used as a way to keep us in bondage, and that we should just not. And also like now, even getting into what you're talking about, how like the church in a lot of ways has become like this place of corruption, and a lot of people are just like pushing back and rebelling against it, and feeling like that is not something that like Black people should even be doing, going, attending, invested in. Like, what do you think about that?
I mean, I think that a lot of people, like you said, they rebel, but they don't really say anything except for amongst themselves. And so I think that, everybody's perception is right. Like religion, the system of religion was placed on slaves by the oppressor. Yeah. But the spiritual connection, like if I think about like Nat Turner. So Nat Turner was like an avid Bible reader. Like he was like a preacher. And he said that he got a message from God to like revolt, like kill these bitches, like, and so
God was like, listen, this is not what's
up.
Like,
and so I feel like if you really read, of course, like all religious texts, like I said, religion is a system. So all religious texts have their own little things that individual people put in there for their own
personal gain.
Exactly. So, but I think that the whole spiritual aspect, like I said, when I go to church, I feel something. And I don't think there's anybody that could say that they don't feel something when they go to church. I guess it depends on what church you go to, but, it's just that sense of community. And so going back to your question, it's kind of like, instead of saying, oh, the church is, corrupt, the church is greedy, but saying that to your friends and like, the people who already know that, like, why don't you tell that to the pastor? Like, and just come up with kind of like some solutions, or, and I know a lot of people said that they did that when they were like younger. They were like in Sunday school and be like, well, how is Jesus God and God is, and the pastor was like, don't worry about that. But I think that as we become adults, we can form like real questions and real like, pushback towards these people. Like, it's almost like you can do that. Like, you can ask, why is this way? Like, why are we paying tithes? And don't give me a scripture. Like, give me the real reason. What is my money going to? You know what I'm saying? Like, tell me. And then from there, you can make the decision, oh, this is not somewhere I need to be, or this is not where I feel my spirit is aligned, So that's how I feel about it. What do you think?
I don't know. I don't know if I just have if I just like have grown an aversion to church. Because I was like forced to spend so much time in church. Right. I don't like church. I don't like going to church.
Right.
I feel like it's not for me. I mean, like, I don't even know, like, I believe in, like, higher power, universe, like, spirituality, like, I believe in that. I believe in, like, guardian angels even, like, spirits. I believe in, spirits walking with us, because I've been in some, like, wild situations that it's like, if it's not something or somebody watching over me, I don't know how I got out of that situation.
Right.
So I definitely believe, like, I have beliefs, like I have faith in something, but like just the concept of like organized religion, I'm real iffy on. But I'm weird about like institutions, in general.
I wish you should be.
Like, I'm weird about higher education. I'm weird. Like, I'm just really weird about institutions, because especially like in the United States, the bedrock of all of our institutions is like systemic racism. Like, the bedrock of all of our institutions, really. And so I'm really, I'm a radical, I guess, that I feel like the institutions for the most part need to be dismantled. So I don't know if we're talking about like the dismantling of, I was just say the Christian church, I guess.
Yeah.
In this like current iteration, the way it is right now as an institution and the way that it's applied to Black people, maybe that should be like, like it has to go.
Yeah, gotta go.
Maybe it should be like taken apart. Like if it could be taken apart and maybe reassembled, sort of in a model that like you're proposing of getting back to like service. It's service, right? Like service based, or even when you were like describing that, talking about it, it made me think about like Black Panther Party, like the free food programs, and again like the childcare programs and stuff like that.
They had the model, like the Panthers.
They had some really great models, like
amazing models.
So, and not to say that the Panthers didn't have their own problems, because they definitely did, but just in terms of like model, if we could get maybe like to a faith-based model that was more in that vein, but just like, I don't know, like you got to get dressed up and like go and like sit in the church and like, and I don't know, like I don't know how I feel about even the idea of like preachers and ministers. Like when I meet people that are religious that say like, oh, they don't go to church, for example, they pray and they have like a personal relationship with God. I feel like I understand that a little bit better. Maybe I'm more receptive to that than this idea of like I have to go get dressed up and like sit in church and like sit in a pew and like listen. Have this person like, who are you? Like who made you the conduit? Like God could talk to me directly, or like the spirit, or like the higher power, or whatever. Like I don't need a conduit to like interpret God's word, because I don't know, you could be putting your own spin on it. You could be putting your own wild spin on it, and you might be, you know, a game of telephone. Like by the time I get the message, like the message might be like distorted. I don't need you to fucking, you know, interpret it for me. And I just don't like all these rules. And there's like a lot. There's just like a lot of corruption. And like I said, though, my grandmother, who's a minister, who I feel like is like a model personally of what a Christian should be. She does a lot of, like, even when we used to go to church, she wouldn't make us dress up or anything. We could wear whatever we want. Like the whole point was just supposed to be like, you know, in the presence of, you know, the Lord or whatever. And she does a lot of like work, again, like youth. Right now, she's doing a lot of work with like impoverished youth in Chicago, and doing a lot of work, anti-violence work, and like that's her thing. That's what she does. And you know, my grandmother's an advocate of like going to therapy, and she's an advocate of, she's like having gay people be in the church and be leaders in the church, and young people, but even like watching my grandmother, it's like a fight. It's like a fight all the time. Like she's fighting to try to get gay people in the church. She's fighting to try to get youth leaders. She's fighting to try to get funds allocated for anti-violence efforts. She's fighting with them now, trying to get them to implement some more, because she's like forward-minded. She's like fighting to get them to try to like implement more like internet and like online type services, which they're like, no, like people need to like come and like sit in the church. And she's like, but this is not the way that it's done anymore. We have to like, start doing maybe some type of like online services, or, you know, something to like, we have to keep up with the times, or else like the church as we know it is just gonna die out. And it is dying out. And she's like, you know, we still should be able to do things for the Black youth and for, you know, these Black communities that need it. But it's just like everything is a fight.
Everything. That's how you know it's a system. Like that's how you know it's a system that's been established for a purpose and not the purpose of service. Like, I need your grandmother's number.
I'll give you her information. I'll give you her information. I'll totally give you her information. But I just be watching it. I just be like, it couldn't be me. Like I have enough fighting going on that I'm not about to be fighting inside of this institution that's supposed to exist to help people. But like I get it. Like, and it has to be for people that want to work in that way to try to like reform. Like I totally get it, but just it couldn't be me. And I'm not with it. Like I have a lot of issues with just like these organizations. A lot in these like hierarchical systems, and you know, you have people at the top, you have people at the bottom. Like you even still have churches that don't like women ministers, you know? And you still have people like at the top that have been at the top for like 50 years. Like they don't change positions or, you know, titles until the person dies, which is like
the Senate.
like the judiciary system.
Right. Like, it's when you really get
until
into
they choose to
just,
step down.
right.
Like, get your old ass out of here. You're old. It's a new era.
Like you said, with the preacher like preaching, and you don't know like what the message really is, like where that message actually came from. Like,
that could be the devil.
Exactly.
That could be Satan.
And so when I was reading about Nat Turner, so right after he did the revolt, like they made it mandatory to have a black minister could not preach without a white minister present after that. Yeah. And so I just feel like that says a lot. And even like at the top of all like Baptist convention or whatever the fuck it's called, but like at the top of all these religions is white people. Like, and so that's where, they get their funding or whatever. So it's the same thing going on today. And some people are just like with it, like you said, it's tradition. So people are gonna fight change. Yeah. People are gonna fight tradition. But then you have some people who are like, nah, like I'm not going for this. And so you have those people that just leave and don't say anything and just like don't want anything to do with it, which is fine. But then you have people like me who's like, no, like I actually enjoy being at church. I don't enjoy what's going on though. And so if I can, I'm gonna try to change it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You need both. I do feel like you need like both types of people. Yeah. Because for people that want to be there, they should be able to be there. People shouldn't feel like they have to leave. Like that's whack. That's lame to me. And I also wanted to sort of like get back to something you had said about like how people worship money and you can't like worship two masters. I was watching this like really interesting like interview type thing with this like mathematician on YouTube, and this dude like wrote a couple books also where he was basically talking about how we do worship money and how we worship capitalism and like money and capital and capitalism like as a fucking religion.
It's crazy.
That has like the West like by the throat. Like,
it's crazy.
And it's just like, and even how when you start having conversations about like ending capitalism or possibly like adopting a new financial system, or even like in terms of like organized religion, like removing the monetary aspect of it and like tithes and offerings and stuff like that, how people are so resistant to it because it is really like we worship money, we worship the dollar, we worship capitalism. We sort of even forget that capitalism and money, paper money and coins and all that stuff, that shit that was like made up, like it was made up by a person, like it was made up by a man. Money is produced and put into circulation by the government, by the Federal Reserve, and it can be changed by a man. I mean human, whatever, man, woman, whatever. It could be like ended by a man. It could be changed by a man. It could be turned into something else. It could be turned into an entirely different system. It could be moved into a barter and trade system, or it could be moved into some type of systems programming, like you were saying with the church, in terms of like, well, we have old people, or we have people that have these different types of skills. Maybe we could like put these type of skills to use instead of having like a monetary system. But people are so attached.
I mean, you feel like if you don't have it, then you're nothing. That's how it's kind of been made. The system has been made into that way. Like everything, you have to have money in order to get it. Like food,
living expenses. Oh my
gosh. Like it's just.
I was just talking about this. I was like, how is living expenses a thing? Like
water.
How?
I go to a place and if I have to pay for water, like I'm cursing you out. Like fuck this place. Like that's how I feel. Like it's just crazy, And I feel like it's like the perfect word, like worship, to where people
they worship money.
Yeah, and it's hard. Like you can tell somebody, and even I find myself like getting kind of lost in it, where I'm like, I want to tell people like, don't go to. I'm sorry,
it's okay, it's fine.
Like, don't go to work. But then I feel bad. I'm like, you have to go to work to make money. But it's like, seriously, if everybody just did not, like, it doesn't make sense. Like, if you just really sit down and think about it, like, why am I going to work? You know, like, the only reason why I'm going to work is because I need money. And the only reason why I need money is because that's my access to fucking everything.
Because the whole system is built around utilizing money.
So it kind of, it perpetuates the worship. Like, even people like me who I don't fuck with that money shit, but like, still, like,
you still need it.
You still need it, which is
it's unfair.
It's so unfair. And I mean, I wish there was a way that they just didn't have to deal with it, you know?
I agree. The way that I feel about it, that I feel like is like super fucked up, is like, for example, nobody asked to be born, right? Like, no one asked to be born.
Nobody pays to be here.
Right. So it's like, I didn't ask to be born.
Right.
So why do I have to pay to be alive?
Exactly.
Because that's literally what a living expense is. It is an expense for living. Like, you have to pay to be alive. It's like, I didn't ask to be born. I was born. And then at a certain age, I've like really thought about it. At a certain age, I entered into a social contract basically with the government and with the financial system. And that says that I have to work.
Right.
I have to create capital for this capitalist system. And in turn, so like, I have to, whatever my job is, that's like me creating capital. So like, I'm creating capital for whoever the boss is. And then in return, they give me a little bit of the capital. A little bit.
Tiny bit.
They give me a little bit of the capital in return.
Enough, not even enough, but
no,
you know, like
barely.
What seems to be enough.
Right. And then I have to utilize that capital to live. So to like have somewhere to live, have a roof over my head, have clothes, because I can't walk down the street naked. That's illegal.
Right.
So I have to pay money for clothes. Because if I don't pay money for clothes, I'm going to be arrested.
Right.
And if I'm arrested, I have to pay money to get out of jail.
It's everywhere.
Like everywhere.
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere. And I'm just like, how is this fair? How is this fair? Especially considering I did not ask to be born.
Right. Like, I didn't pay an entry. Like,
I did not pay an entry
I didn't pay an
fee.
entry to my mom's womb. Like, what the hell is going on?
And I'm just like so opposed. I'm really opposed. I really am opposed.
Yeah, I'm the same.
And it's really like, and people, again, getting back to sort of even this idea of like the church, people have realized that they can just like use the church and they can use organized religion as just another vehicle to like accrue fucking capital. Yeah. I also have a whole theory. We're about to like get a little, we're about to get a little out there. In terms of like spirituality and stuff, I sort of have a theory that like money and capital is like legit like demonic. Like, I sort of believe that like evil, because like greed is like one of the 7 deadly sins, if you like believe in that.
It really is.
So I believe that like greed and like money and capital, I sort of think there's something like inherently evil and demonic inside of it. And people will really lose their minds and do like evil, hateful things for money and in the name of money and in the name of greed, people killing each other, people like just even if you like really like take a step back and even think about like slavery, which was about capital. It was about like the buying and selling of, you know, black bodies as capital and the use of black bodies to generate capital on plantations, and all of this capital also being funneled back into this new country, America, into their economy as a way to build up the economy. And that's even how America even became a economic superpower, was like centuries of building up this economy without having to give anything back, because they didn't have to pay for the labor, they don't have to pay for anything. It was just like, you know, money getting funneled into the economy without having to put anything back. And ever since slavery has been abolished, they've been trying to find another way to get basically something for nothing, which we basically hit on it now in terms of automation and robotics. And now we see all these jobs leaving and not, you know, coming back, and wages stagnating, and this is late stage capitalism right now, which is like this huge wealth inequality and all these disparities and all this poverty. And I just feel like the whole shit is fucking demonic. As fuck.
I agree. I agree. I mean, because you would do, like you said, there are people that would do anything to get it, and then anything to keep it.
Yeah.
Like, and so I think it's just important for everybody to have their own personal code that they live by, like a moral code in a way, because it's like you, in this day and age, in this era, like we said, you have to have it, but it's like, what are you willing or not willing to do to get it? And I feel like a lot of people don't think about that, you know, in a way, like they're just kind of like, whatever, like I just got to get it. Like I just have to have it, you know? And so, yeah, I mean, that demonic money, that I agree.
I don't even like,
Greed.
I don't even like talking about money. People be like, oh, like this, and I just be like, please, like I feel tainted.
Right. I can't.
Like I cannot fuck with the money thing. Like I'm I'm just like an anti-capitalist.
Yeah.
But it sucks because it's true. It's like you need money for everything. Everything. And I just don't. And I've been thinking about like what sort of exists outside of capitalism, and especially for Black people, and especially in terms of services. And I feel like a lot of people are sort of heading in that direction, almost in terms of like paradigm shifts of more people thinking about, even in the same way that you were talking about like service-based, goods-based, again, barter and trade systems. You know, how can we sort of pool our resources and our skills and our everything together to help each other? Because like this capitalist shit, especially for like Black Americans, like this capitalism shit really ain't working for us in particular. Like it is like not
they
working.
Weren't lying when they said it wasn't built for us. Like it wasn't built to work for us. It was built to work against us.
Yes.
We're gonna constantly be at the bottom as long as we participate in it. You know, so it's like, but then it's like I said, it's hard to tell people not to participate in it when it's all around you. You know? So getting back to that service aspect, like, look, don't go to work today and I'll make sure that you eat. I'll make sure that you know, have some clothes, you know, like I would like to tell, like, I'll pay your bills.
People ask me all the time, like, what would I do if I hit the lotto? I'd be like, ooh, it would take that money back ASAP. I was like, because the first thing I would do is I would create an alternative, like, curriculum, like an alternative school model, like, for Black kids. I would, like, put all the money into, like, a fund. So, like, kids could like go to like Black kids could like go to alternative schools and like learn the truth instead of learning all this like fucking racist ass propaganda and shit that we learn. I was like, I would put it into a fund for like free meal programs and childcare and clothing and housing, and like just put it back into like a lot of our communities. I would implement a lot of like the old Black Panther programming. After a month of the money, they'd be like, you have to take that money back.
Listen, you got to get this back.
You have to take that money back from that girl because
she's doing the most.
She's doing the most with the money. She's not doing what we thought she was going to do with it. And I just don't think she was the right person. Or they would just like put me on an FBI watch list and like
whatever,
snipe me or something. Like it would be a lot. It's just, but I've been thinking a lot about that. Even in terms of like the global Black strongholds thing, in terms of like Black people now on a global level, so people in the Black diaspora coming together in our various communities in our various cities, states, countries, because we are all over the world. And again, like pooling our resources and pooling our skills and our ideas, because right now, and I sort of, it's wild because like I'm against like integration. I'm a separatist. I felt like integration was like a trap and it was like implemented terribly. And I sort of feel like what we see now happening on a macro level, on a huge level, is a lot of the ideas of integration, which is almost like, you know, you pull your best and your brightest out of their Black communities and you send them elsewhere. So be it you pull your best and your brightest out of your home country and you send them to America. You pull your best and your brightest out of your, you know, Black American communities and schools and you send them to these white schools and these white communities. You know, this idea of we have to get out. We have to get out of our communities. We have to get out of our neighborhoods. We have to get out of our schools. We have to get out of our countries, if we're talking about on a global level, and funnel into somewhere else because, like, oh, that's where the opportunities are. That's where the better opportunities are. Instead of, well, how do we create our own opportunities here so that we can be competitive, or so that we can become our own superpower, or so that we can become, global, autonomous, independent communities, these strongholds of, again, pooling our resources and pooling our skills and helping each other out so that Black people could go anywhere in the world and have somewhere to go because we have built our own shit up. I feel like that is like something that really needs to like be implemented and that people really need to start thinking about, because the way that we're doing it right now is not working at all.
It's really not. And it's getting worse.
It's getting worse.
It's not even,
like late stage capitalism is very real. Yeah, it's getting a lot worse.
It's getting a lot worse. And that's why, I mean, when we're talking about education, like, I mean, that's what it's all about. And like, I've heard you say before, like, we are in this very like hyper individualism where we only think about ourselves. We only think about what's going to benefit us in the moment.
And so short term.
Yes. And not thinking about like, if it's like this now, think about how it's going to be for your children, or, just children in general, Black children. Like, think about how are they going to get to where they can sustain themselves. Like, at this point, I don't see that happening.
I don't either.
I don't see that happening at all. Like,
I say that all the time too about just capitalism in general. In a nutshell, like, it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
And just the way that we live right now, it's not sustainable. Mm-mm. It's not sustainable.
No.
Like, nothing is fucking sustainable the way that we do it now.
So, I don't have any children, but I think about the children. I try to come out of myself and like think about other people around me. And I mean, that's what service is all about. So it's just like, even if it doesn't work or if I don't see it, like, I have to do something. I have to do something because this isn't working.
It's not. I just posted a video today on collectives.
I didn't watch it yet, but I need to.
Yeah, on collectives. Where I was just, and I said in the video, I was like, this fucking hyper individualism is gonna be the death of us all. We really need to start thinking in terms of, white people love to say one race, the human race. Like, well, collectively, the human race is in trouble,
right?
And in terms of our race, the Black race, and even like getting even further in terms of Black Americans, DACS, like our collective is in trouble.
It really is.
And we just really, we cannot keep thinking in such a hyper individual way of just like, well, me, mine. I'm out to get mine. I have to look out for me. Or even just like me and like my family, or, whatever.
But you don't even see that so much anymore. No, like, that the education system is trash, but you still will send your kid to a trash school. You know what I'm saying? And not saying that you have to send them to a private school like you were saying, but it's just like, if for anybody, you should want the best for your child. You know what I'm saying? And whatever your best is, if you know what it's not, then that's not what you should be putting your child. Because like, oh, that's what I had to do. Like, it's not about you.
Yes. Like, I see a lot of that too. Of like, well, yeah, that's what I had to do. Or that's what I went through and whatever, it's fine. I did a video like maybe 3 years ago on homeschooling, on Black homeschooling.
Yeah.
Because Black Americans are actually like the number one fastest growing demographic in the United States that's homeschooling. Yeah. For a variety of reasons, including like mostly the schools that are in Black communities are underfunded. The curriculum is outdated, which is all linked to systemic racism, institutionalized racism of keeping us out of spaces. And the classes are overcrowded. The schools are closing. There's not enough teachers. The teachers are not well trained. When you do have the teachers, they're white for the most part, and they're just like not giving a fuck about the kids. The kids are over policed. So they're funneled into the prison system with the school to prison pipeline. They're pathologized, especially like Black male children are pathologized in school, like as violent, as disruptive, suspended, kicked out, all these things that a lot of like Black parents are like, again, they're the number one fastest growing demo that's just like we're gonna just like homeschool. Like we have to homeschool. Our kids are not safe, and like even if the kids were safe, which they're not, what we even learn in the school system is like really propaganda, like Thanksgiving, like all types of stuff. It's just like, what are we even learning? What is even going on? Being indoctrinated into like the fucking American bullshit system. And I remember I did that video. I talked about, before I did the video, I talked about it in a video, and somebody was like, well, I would love to homeschool my kids, but I'm not sure how. And so I did a follow-up video where I was like, well, here's some options. I was like, here are some of the reasons why people are doing it. Here's just like some numbers and some statistics for you guys to look into. And here are some options on the ways that people are doing it, and like the most common ways that people are doing it are sort of like service based, where you have a lot of people that are forming like co-ops, like cooperative schools, where so you might have a group of, let's say like 5 or 6 parents get together, and let's just say like for this conversation, each of them has like 1 kid, so that's like 6 kids, and then they like alternate homes. So like one parent does it one day, one parent does it another day, another parent does it another day. And so that way all the parents are like alternating when they take off from work, or if like one parent is maybe able to like stay at home for like an extended period of time, or like work from home, then like they do it, or people were like doing it in shifts. They were coming up with like all these different types of schedules.
That's a really dope model.
It was super cool. Like I was reading a lot about it, and then you had other people that were like, well, that they still send their kids to like regular school, like just because, but then they try to like supplement. So like in the afternoons, which I thought of because that's actually what a lot of like Jewish people do. They have their kids go to like regular school, and then they have them go to like Jewish school. Like day school on the weekend, maybe like on the weekend, Saturday mornings, or maybe like in the afternoons. So they're still going to like school where they learn like whatever regular bullshit that you learn in school. But then they still go to like their Jewish school where they learn how to speak Hebrew, and they learn about synagogue, and they learn about the religious traditions, and they learn about things about themselves and their own culture and their own ethnicity and their own heritage that they're not going to learn in the regular school. And so there were some people that were even like adopting some models like that, where they were like, well, our kids go to regular school, but for an hour a day after, we do like our own like little version of school, and we put the kids together. And people were just like coming up with some like amazing models, and even ways that still allowed them to work and still allowed them to do kind of different things, but a lot of it did revolve around service and this concept of like, well, we have to pitch in and do it together, even if we cannot make any money capital off of it. We have to think about, well, like, what is best for the community, or like what is best for these children, like how do we figure it out, you know?
I did like a home-based school in New Orleans. Me and my best friend started it, and then it kind of transitioned. She moved away, and so me and my roommate were doing it together. And it was like early education aged children. And what I learned from that experience was that you have to really know what people value, which I've heard you talk about before. It's like getting into people's values, and like, do we really value education? Which I felt like that model is good. Like the co-opting model is really dope, because in my situation, the parents were charged like a tuition, but we tried to make it like as easy, I guess, as possible, as convenient as possible. So like, if you don't have this full amount, like you can bring food, or, like you can bring books, you could bring supplies, like whatever, but, we tried to kind of work
like a sliding scale almost.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then we had like part-time, full-time, like if you just want your child to come Monday, Wednesday, Friday, like that's cool. Or, you just want them to come one day out the week, like that's cool too. But everybody worked. So nobody really had the time to kind of like, we asked for volunteers as well. Like, just somebody to come in, if you don't have the full amount, like just come in and pay with your time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, so it ended up being, and I mean, this goes back to money being like
the root of all evil.
Exactly. Like anytime
Demonic.
Anytime you like enter into that system, it just makes it clouds a lot of shit.
It does.
It clouds a lot of shit.
Everything changes once money gets involved.
Yeah. And that's why I'm the same as you. Like, I don't like talking about it. I don't like it just makes me very like,
yeah,
like,
makes me nervous. I don't care for it.
Exactly. So, you know, it ended up ending for a lot of different reasons. But the main reason was that, you know, it wasn't a model that worked for us. We weren't doing it the way that we should have been doing it, but we had to do it the way that we were able to sustain ourselves. So, which, you know, that's why it didn't work.
Yeah,
like, you know, because it's like you get into the money thing and it just, it gets ugly.
What is the saying? Money
sometimes.
makes shit funny.
Yeah,
ain't that the saying? Something about that. Money is funny, something like that.
Yeah.
Money
So, but I mean, I definitely want to do it again. Like, if I could get involved in like a co-op like that. I mean, with the whole church thing, like that's what I'm looking to do is like work with children. I love children, so I could do that all day for no money. But you know, I have to pay for things.
Unfortunately, right? You know, like I said, you can't walk down the street naked,
right?
So you gotta buy clothes somehow,
right? Like,
unfair.
If somebody wants to take me in and like, you know, have me watch their children.
You know, okay.
Like,
you know what I've
cool.
also been thinking about? Might be a little off topic, but not really. I've been thinking a lot about like philosophy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I used to have, and this is also like applicable to like art and stuff like that. So if you like read about a lot of like the old philosophers or the old like painters and Da Vinci and stuff like that, they had like what do you call them, like proprietors, like sponsors and stuff. So people that were like rich and they just, okay, well, I'm a benefactor, that's the word.
Okay.
I'm gonna be your benefactor. So for a whole year, I'm gonna support you. And so I'm gonna pay your bills, I'm gonna, you know, whatever. And so you can dedicate that time. If you're a philosopher, you could dedicate that time to thinking and you can like come up with your philosophical ideas. Or if you're an artist, you could dedicate that time to creating. If you're a writer, you could dedicate that time to writing. And a lot of the really like big famous ones, it was like an exchange almost. So it was like, well, I'm rich, I have a lot of money, whatever, I don't care. So I'm going to be your benefactor. And but in exchange for me being your benefactor, by the end of the year, you have to have produced at least 6 works. And they don't have to be works that I'm going to have like in my house personally, but like, you have to have produced at least 6 works, something like that. And then if at the end of the year you've done it and you've like done your contribution to society, maybe I'll become your benefactor for another year. And I even like learned about
That's
a lot
interesting.
I even learned about a lot of this while I was doing like research for my Hidden Figures and stuff. Because there have been quite a few artists, like Black women artists that have been able to go overseas. And like there was one in particular that she was able to go overseas and learn how to like sculpt like over in like Italy and Rome because she had a benefactor, somebody that paid for her to do that because they recognized her talent and they felt like you shouldn't have to be concerned about how am I going to pay for this, that. You have a brilliant artistic talent that I think it would be beneficial to society. So I'm going to be your benefactor. I'm going to pay for you to do that. That is like not a thing anymore.
No,
and that used to be like a regular, that used to be like a regular thing. Even getting into like philanthropy and like if you look at a lot of the museums and the libraries and stuff like that in New York, or like the Cooper Union, which was founded by like a billionaire that like put money into a trust. He put money into a trust because he appreciated the arts. He himself was not an artist, but he appreciated the arts. He felt like the arts were important to American society, and he was like a billionaire. Like he inherited money, so he put money into a trust, and the trust was supposed to be that so that artists that came from underprivileged backgrounds would be able to get a full ride. And I have a couple friends that went to the Cooper Union in New York that would be able to get full rides for like a full 4 years of school and like learn about art, and like they wouldn't have to pay anything. All they had to do was be good enough to get in.
Right.
And then at the end, you have this like great 4-year degree from this like great school. A few years ago, I want to say 3 or 4 years ago, they started charging people tuition.
Wow.
Because they like built these like $100 million buildings. And the president of the Cooper Union was like paying himself $20 million a year salary. And people was just writing themselves checks and bonuses. And like they were taking it out of the trust that's supposed to be for the students.
Right.
And now starting a few years ago, if you go there, you have to pay tuition.
I wonder how much it is.
I think it's a lot. Because Cooper Union is a really good school.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot. And so it's like this idea of like benefactors that support artists, that support philosophers, that support people that are, you know, contributing to society maybe in a different way, you know, benefactors and philanthropy, you know, donating money to the arts and to public spaces, things that are for the good of everyone, for the good of the collective.
Right.
That is like not a thing anymore because we just have this like hyper individual, hyper capital, me, wealth hoarding, greed is good, accruing capital by any means necessary. And I do think that's also having an impact on our society in terms of like we don't have great philosophers that think about what is best for society and for the collective and how, you know, how should we move forward. We don't have, you know, who's going to support, you know, great artists. Like we don't, that's just like not a thing anymore. And it's just, it's sad. It's depressing.
It's really sad. It's really sad. I was thinking about the article that you posted on Instagram about social media.
Yeah.
And like
that shit was scary.
Yeah, that shit was hella scary.
I didn't know. I was reading it like screen time is linked to suicide. Let me turn my phone off right now.
Right this moment. But yeah, it's like when she said like, you know, we can remember a time where there was no cell phone.
Yeah. Like
there was no, I mean, I remember a time where there was no internet. Like I remember getting the computer in my home.
I remember too.
You know what I'm saying? And having like the dial up. Like I remember that. Whereas these waiting like, come on. I want to play Collapse or whatever.
I want to play Minesweeper.
Like whatever it was. But yeah, like I can remember that time where it's these, you know, the youth of today, like grew up like with that in their hand. Like, and these children today are growing up with that in their hands. Like they don't know a time without the cell phone. And I think that's interesting to me because they kind of made it just like with the benefactor thing, like you just kind of, the system just kind of made it disappear. Yeah. You know, like to where we don't even remember the time of when it was. And I think that's definitely on purpose, you know, like,
no, I agree.
Same thing with the actual cell phone. Like there was a time where people had beepers, you know, pay phones, like all those types of things.
I saw someone on a payphone the other day.
Wow.
I was like,
because it's like you don't see that anymore. Like they basically made it to where like you have to have a cell phone. Like there's no way you can communicate with anybody unless you have a cell phone.
And to have a cell phone, you have to pay for the bill.
Right.
So you need capital.
So you need
money.
Capital. Like beeper, what? No, that's out. Y'all are done with that. Now it's the cell phone.
Or 25 cents to make a call on a payphone.
Right.
I don't think they have a 25-cent cell phone plan.
I haven't seen a payphone in forever, so.
The one that I saw was in a 7-Eleven parking lot. It was like in front of a 7-Eleven and it still had like 25 cents. But I was just like, wow, I haven't seen that in a while. It stood out because I haven't seen it in so long.
Yeah, I think that's crazy. I mean, that's how you know that this entire country is being ran by like 2% of the people, and they just make decisions.
1%.
1%. 1%.
Yeah, I really think that like especially Black Americans in DACS, it's hard, especially for us because like we are at the bottom. And we are poor, and we need capital more than anyone else. And so it's difficult to say, like, I would like for us to start thinking outside of the box, because it sounds like judgmental. I don't mean it in a judgmental way. I'm not trying to shame anybody, because I totally get it. Like, money makes the world go round, and we all had to do it.
Like, we've all had to do it. So I can't judge you on something that I did or do. You know, like
I just also feel like at the same time, we have to like start thinking about it differently in terms of different ways, or even if just we can just supplement somehow, like the whole, maybe you still send your kids to school, but at the end of the day you do like a little something. And I've also been like involved in some programs that have used time banks, which is sort of like what you were talking about before, of like, well, if you can't pay with money, pay with time or pay with a skill, you know, like, oh, well, I could do 5 hours of babysitting, I could do 6 hours of video editing, I could do 8 hours of drawing, I could do an hour of washing dishes in your house, I could do your laundry, I could do this, I could do that. Because it's just like, I mean, again, like, it's affecting us more than anybody else.
It is.
So how do we start working around the system?
And I think
it's
that,
important.
It really is. And if we think about it, it's kind of like we've always been at the bottom, you know, in the system, and how we've survived so long is working together, you know, like really, you know, being a real community, but going back to the hyper individualism, like, that's kind of like taking over.
It is taking over. A lot of those ties are being severed.
It's a detriment. It really is.
Yeah, it is. I agree. Well, I think that stuff like what you're doing in terms of like your services, your church services, and conversations like these ones that we're having now are super important. And
I appreciate it.
Because
you really like kickstarted me thinking about like all of this Black Americans, you know, it's just and I think that's what philosophy is all about, right? Like,
I would love to be a philosopher, but I keep thinking, but how will I survive? Because you cannot get, it's the same thing. It's like you can't get a job as a philosopher. I mean, I guess you could like teach philosophy, but like, I'm like morally and ethically opposed to like, the institution of higher education. Like, you have to like pay capital money for knowledge.
And it's just like a piece of paper.
So it's just like, I would love to be a philosopher. I mean, and I guess like, I am already one, but it's just like, you can't get a job doing that. You need a job, you need money to survive. If you take a job teaching, now you have essentially put your quote unquote knowledge in this box where only the people that can pay for it, afford it, can even get it. It's just like, and around and around and around and fucking round you go. Like, geez.
But I mean,
working on it.
And I mean, like you say, you're doing it. Like, I think it's about just planting that seed so that other people can like grow and expound upon like the seeds that you plant, you know? And that's powerful. Like, that's powerful right there. Just like having the thought, and then planting that thought in other people's minds, and then having them like to a point where you can't think of anything else. Like, I'm to the point now where I can't think of anything else except for like, how are we gonna fuck this shit up? Like, how are we gonna get out of this? Like,
welcome to the dark side. I converted you. Because that'd be me all day.
You did.
People be like, oh, what do you think about this? I'd be like, I can't talk about that.
Like, in your words, I hate everything. Like,
I hate everything. I can't think about anything else.
Right. So
I cannot use my brain power on anything but this.
Seriously. I mean, and it's all that matters. Like,
I feel like it really is
all that matters. Like, what else? Going back to what you said about like religion, spirituality, like, what else are you here for? Like, we all die. Like, we all come into this world and we all die. So like, why not do something that is gonna make this world, you know, or at least, you know, the people you know, make their lives a little bit better. You know, the people that you leave behind, like, make their lives, make this shit a little bit easier. Like, you know, like, I can't take anything else with me, but I can leave something, you know? So that's what I'm on.
I think that's a good place to stop. I love that. That was so good. Look at you with the quotables. With the quotables.
Man, that was so good.